let's dive right into the show. I want to kick things off here today by talking about Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts. So as you all know, recently, the Indianapolis Colts, presumably starting quarterback Carson Wentz, was injured recently, and Carson Wentz is now out for roughly 5 to 12 weeks. He just recently had foot surgery. There was a piece of his bone that came loose in his left foot. So he just recently had foot surgery. It's a very serious injury. Like I said, he's out roughly 5 to 12 weeks. And I think that's kind of being generous on the Colts side of things. I really don't think Carson Wentz is going to return this season up until the later stages of the season. In fact, if the Colts are out of playoff contention by the time Carson Wentz is even cleared to play, I honestly could see them just shutting him down for the entire season, because there's no point in playing Carson Wentz coming off an injury when you're not in playoff contention. You know what I'm saying? Really no point, Let's see what the other quarterbacks have on that roster, But there seems to be now a trend with Carson Wentz where some Eagles fans and some Carson Wentz truthers a couple of years ago wanted to deny the fact that he was injury prone. Well, the cat's out the bag, people. And again, I take no pleasure in saying this because I don't want Carson Wentz to go out there and get injured. I don't want any player to go out there and get injured. I want all players to have a fair chance to go out there and compete. Getting hurt sucks, okay? But here's the reality. Carson Wentz is injury prone. That's been proven. In 2016, his rookie season, he had multiple nagging injuries at the end of the year. In 2017, which was his best season as a pro, he tore his ACL and couldn't finish the season, and the Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl without Carson Wentz that season. 2018, he comes back. He gets shut down towards the end of the season because of a serious back injury. And in 2019, he actually plays the full 16-game season, but in the playoffs, he suffers a concussion versus the Seattle Seahawks, a game in which the Eagles obviously ended up losing because, well, Carson Wentz wasn't available to play. Maybe they win that game if he plays. We don't know. 2020, this past year, I will say, I got to give him some credit. He did stay healthy for the season when he was playing. And now we're at a point where he's got to have foot surgery. So we're at a point where Carson Wentz, 4 out of the 6 seasons that he's been in the National Football League, he's had serious injuries. Now, I could see the Indianapolis Colts maybe potentially trading for a guy like Nick Foles, who really is probably not going to get much playing time this year in Chicago due to Andy Dalton and Justin Fields being on the Chicago Bears roster. Phillip Rivers has kind of come out and said that he might come out of retirement. The Colts had him as their quarterback last year. Maybe he comes back. I doubt it, though. Maybe the Colts could look to acquire Jimmy Garoppolo, although I don't think it's necessary to acquire those guys because I truly want to see what Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger has in them this year. Now, that might be a hot take for some of you Colts fans, and you might say, I want our team to go all in to try to win a Super Bowl. I got news for you, people. Nick Foles, Jimmy Garoppolo, Phillip Rivers, they're not winning this team a Super Bowl. And why would you trade some unnecessary assets and affect your salary cap if you know you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl and you have 2 quarterbacks on the roster that you drafted in Sam Ehlinger and Jacob Eason? I want to see what those guys have, okay? It was actually not too long ago. The Colts won games a year ago with Jacoby Brissett when Andrew Luck was retired. When Andrew Luck all of a sudden out of nowhere retired, okay? So I don't think the Colts should make a move at quarterback. Now, I feel so bad for Carson Wentz because we all thought he was going to get a fresh start, and he was already pretty much on thin ice. And listen, here's the reality about Carson Wentz. Whether it's fair or not, if Carson Wentz does not perform at a high level once he steps on the field with Indianapolis, I think that his days as potentially being the leader of a franchise as a longtime franchise quarterback, those days might be numbered because here's the reality, people. No one is going to want an injury-prone, inconsistent quarterback that can't win big games. In fact, Carson Wentz has never even had back-to-back winning seasons, okay? So I think that this really is a huge bad break. This is not good for Carson Wentz. His future with the Indianapolis Colts is definitely up in the air, and his future potentially as a legitimate starting franchise quarterback for a team where that team is going to potentially put their trust in him to be the guy for the next 5 to 10 years, I think that trust might be out the window as early as maybe next year. That's pretty much that's pretty crazy considering the fact that the Colts just traded for Carson Wentz, but that's a possibility. Now, the good news for the Colts is they have a chance to tread water until Carson Wentz comes back, because the Colts, if you look at their roster, they have a great offensive line. Even though Quentin Nelson is hurt, that's another huge blow for the Colts. They've just had injuries pile up to them up to this point. They may be the 49ers from last year, where San Francisco, they just had injury after injury after injury, and all those injuries caught up to them, and they missed the playoffs. That could be the Colts this year. But you look at the Colts, they have a good offensive line. They have a really good running game led by Jonathan Taylor and 2 other really good running backs. They have a pretty solid defense, and I believe in Frank Wright and that coaching staff. I think Frank Wright as a head coach is pretty underrated. So I think the Colts have a chance, like I said, to tread water until Carson Wentz comes back potentially. But here's the thing. The problem for the Colts is the first 8 weeks of their schedule are absolutely brutal. And I felt it was going to be tough for the Colts to make it into the playoffs, even with Carson Wentz as their starting quarterback. And again, I got nothing against Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger, or Nick Foles or whoever the Colts may try to bring in, but it's going to be hard to make the playoffs this season for Indianapolis, because here's the thing. The first 8 weeks of their schedule for the 2021 season, it's absolutely brutal. Like I said, you have to play Seattle, the Rams, you're at Tennessee, at Miami, at Baltimore. You get the Houston Texans, which is probably a gimme win, and then you play at the 49ers and then the Titans again. When you look at Seattle, the Rams, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the 49ers, I could see all of those teams potentially making it into the playoffs. Okay, the first 8 weeks of that schedule is brutal. And not to mention, the Colts also have to play against Buffalo and Tampa Bay and New England and Arizona later on in the season. So I don't think the Colts are going to make the playoffs this year. The schedule is way too brutal. I do believe they are by far and away the second best team in this division. If you had a healthy Carson Wentz, the gap between Tennessee and the Colts wouldn't be all that wide, but I did think Tennessee had the advantage coming into the year, even if Carson Wentz was healthy. But yeah, I think the Colts season is really starting to be kind of almost over right before our own eyes, and that's the reality of the NFL sometimes, Sometimes you just have a couple of bad breaks in training camp, the injuries start to pile up, and, by week 4 or 5, you realize this time around, we're probably not a playoff team. So unlucky break for Chris Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts. I feel so bad for Carson Wentz because I was truly rooting for him to turn his career back on track with the Colts. He was on a pretty good pace to potentially be a great franchise quarterback with the Eagles. If you look at his performance in 2017, if he was healthy for the entire season, he was going to win the league MVP, but he has not gotten close to that level ever since. He's had some injuries. He's had some inconsistent play. Hopefully, people thought that he would have a fresh start with the Indianapolis Colts. He really played awful last year in Philadelphia. So people thought that with a better coaching staff, better roster, maybe a fresh start for Carson Wentz. But unfortunately, a bad break for him, man. That's how I feel about Carson Wentz and the Colts. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.